This is Alex from Lawyer Up, Berger Law in Marquette, Michigan. I have some news and I have some wins to report from this week. First news is we moved our offices. We moved from the historic law office located on Front Street at 321 North Front Street, and we moved down to the Union Block building on Washington Street. It's about a 3-block move, so not that far, but the Union Block is terrific. We're very excited to get our offices up and running there. And as for our wins this week, we had 3 cases dismissed. The first one was set for trial this upcoming Tuesday. And this last week, we were notified that it was dismissed after we did our final pretrial conference and talked about the case. It was a child abuse allegation where a teenage girl made up some allegations of child abuse, just some pushing against dad to try to game the dynamic between her parents. Once the prosecutor listened to us and actually talked to the girl, it was clear that this never happened. She recanted, and so the case was dismissed properly. And so I'm really glad that the family wasn't put through the pressure of having that trial. It would have undoubtedly caused more problems than it would have solved, and justice is done for my client, although he had to endure over a year of dealing with this case pending out there. The other 2 dismissals were both alleged drug-impaired driving cases. The first one was a case where a guy was driving with a trailer. He was going to be taking his lawnmower back to the shop, and it was in the trailer. He gets pulled over. The officer thinks he's suspicious, pulls him out of the car, does field sobriety tests. My client fails all the field sobriety tests, the 3 standardized and the 3 non-standardized, and so he's arrested. They do a chemical blood test, and lo and behold, they only find Zoloft, which he's prescribed. So that means they find no impairing substances in his blood. So this goes to show 2 things. First, the field sobriety tests do not show impairment. This was an individual who had no impairing substances, and yet he still failed them. And second, hold off on cases. Fight them. Do not just cave and take a plea offer. This was a situation where we had to wait a couple months for the lab results, which vindicated my client, and then we had to wait a couple months more to convince the prosecutor that the case should be dismissed because the lab results don't show an impairing substance. Now, the third OWI is a very interesting case. This case was not set for trial on Tuesday. It's been a case that's been going on for over a year. So my client was driving. She was pulled over, and the officers think that she's impaired. They pull her out. They do field sobriety tests. She fails the field sobriety tests, and then they also pull out a passenger, and they find a bunch of drugs on the passenger. So they arrest my client. They arrest the passenger, and then the case goes on. We file our normal motions to exclude all sorts of evidence relating to the drug impaired driving. And we have the hearing like 6 or 7 months into the case, and we don't have any labs back that show drugs. We have an alcohol laboratory result which shows no alcohol, but there is a request for them to do a drug screen at the state crime lab, but we don't have those lab results. So we postponed the hearing, and then we rescheduled it a couple months later. I think it was in November. We had our second attempt at the hearing, still no lab results. And I indicate to the judge that I'm going to seek to exclude the lab results if we don't get them soon, or ask the judge to dismiss the case. And so the case just hangs out there waiting for these labs. I spoke with the prosecutor about 2 weeks ago after I got new lab results, which were dated in late December, but they were the exact same no alcohol lab. So I told him I'm going to file a motion to dismiss if I don't get something soon. And then we talked. And he dismissed it just randomly this week. And so I talked to him at the courthouse, the prosecutor, and I asked why he dismissed it. It's because he talked to the state crime lab, and they told him, even though he talked to them several times, that they actually ran a screening test on my client's blood, and there were no drugs detected. So the prosecutor had no idea that my client had been cleared as having no impairing substances. Also, this would have been her second offense OWI, which would have been terrible for all sorts of reasons. The impacts would have been rough. And I know, the first OWI is done business, but the second one, my client was not on anything. and she was pulled out of the vehicle. Her passenger was arrested. She was put through field sobriety tests, 3 standardized, 3 non-standardized, and was told that she was too high to drive, arrested, and she had to deal with the pressure of this second OWI offense for a year and a half. So that just goes to show, first, again, field sobriety tests do not show any sort of impairment. This person had nothing in their system. And second, fight these cases. Hire an attorney that's willing to go all the way and make sure that they are fighting everything they can, not taking any plea deals, and potentially going to trial if we need to do that. So keep in touch. Keep looking at our videos for any further updates. Thank you.